Eh bien, bonjour. Non, je parle anglais. Hi, this is Ariel from France. Bonjour. And welcome to this channel where we create fun costumes and weird stuff. Today we are making the outfit of the one, the only Britney Spears. Britney Spears. Britney Spears. By the way, you should watch Framing Britney Spears. That was pretty chilling. Free Britney! I want to make my favorite outfit, the Stewardess costume from the video Toxic. She looks so cool and sexy in this outfit. Complètement iconique. J'adore. Flight attendants have always been romanticized and sexualized, as many female-dominated jobs have. And I would know because... Hold on a second, I need some lipstick for this. Évidemment, j'ai raté. I was a flight attendant! I was one on this airline a long time ago. I had just finished university, I wanted to travel, but I didn't have any money, so I got a job traveling the world. I stayed only for 1 year, but the experience was incredible. Seeing so many countries I would never have had the money to see. Plus the pay was okay, and I saved all my salaries to pay for fashion school when I came back to Paris. And now I am good at sewing, partly thanks to that job. It means a lot to me. Anyway, here, let's have fun, make a costume, and pretend for a minute to be Britney in 2003. Because nostalgia is a coping mechanism in times of crisis, and it helps to calm yourself when the future of the world seems bleak and devoid of any hope. C'était pas trop le fun cette tirade. I will be making this cool uniform and drafting the pattern myself, and I want to make it available for free, so we can all work in this airline together and be co-workers. Let's get to work! Let's get to work! Sorry. The first thing to do was to draft the pattern. For this, I used my wooden mannequin and some old cotton sheets that I have around. This is a great material for drafting, and also for mock-ups. I pinned the pieces in place and cut off the excess fabric. Here I'm starting with the color. Maybe you can see that I'm making slight changes, because I think the dress would be better if the collar is not hanging like this. I will make a tight fit around the neck. Then I drafted the chest, flattening the fabric on the mannequin while I make a dart under the boob. I try to have the original picture very close, so I can look at it for reference. Then I drafted the belt. It's just a long strip, slightly curved. Then I move to the skirt, which is very simple. Here the front and the back. I made a simple shape for the shoulder. Then I mark my seams with a red pen, so it's very visible when I put it flat. And not to forget, little notches. To draft the paper pattern, I just need a ruler, a curve tracing tool, une roulette. See those little spikes? They can trace through the fabric onto the paper. Very useful. Then I just need a pencil and my sewing weights to hold everything in place. I trace all my piece onto the paper, and I try to adjust the lines, make some more straight, some more curvy, to have a better pattern. Sometimes with experience, we can just see when a piece is not right, but we still need to make a mock-up after this. I made a mock-up using a fabric sheet again, cutting all the pieces twice, with 1 centimeter of seam allowance. See those weights? They are very flat, so they are not on the way when you are cutting with the scissors. It's just 2 flat rings from the hardware store that I covered in fabric. Very cheap. So I assembled the dot on the chests, the side seams of the skirts, then I assemble all the parts together. Then I use my iron to flatten the seam. That's very important to check the fit. I added closure in the back, just a zipper, nothing fancy. And see how perfect it fits on the mannequin. And then I try it on, and even though my measures are close to the one of my mannequin, it doesn't fit me very well. My bust is very short compared to the one of the mannequin, and that is why the fabric is kind of gaping. So I unpicked one side and I repinned it on myself to make it really tight, making the opening in the center a bit wider, but not too much, we don't want any accident, and also a bit wider near the arm to also avoid any accident on the side boob part. You can kind of see the difference between the two sides. Let's all pray to avoid any slipping of any kind. On the belt and the collar there are little stripes. I don't think it is trim. I think it is bias. So that would mean that those pieces are not one strip with the trim, but actually bias a thin piece, bias a thin piece, and I think on this costume that is why the belt and the collar look a bit off. It's because they are not curved. I think it's just a rectangle. I'm going to have all those strips a bit curved. It's going to be a little more difficult to have very neat, but I think it will look better. I have some simple cotton here for most of the dress, and I will use this fancy fabric to make the corded trim. This grey is not as light and shiny as the reference, but I really like it, so I'm going to use it. Et puis de toute façon, je fais ce que je veux. Let's go! I pre-washed the cotton and then ironed it before I cut it. I cut strips of the silver, just ripping it because it's easy. Then I folded them in half and sew a row of stitching very close to the edge. This will be used as a channel where I can put a cord to make some piping. I used this big blunt needle and threaded some leftover yarn in it. Then you just need to make the needle go through all the strip of piping. I really like to do this, I don't know why. With all this piping, I can now start with the collar and the belt. I divided those two pattern pieces into the number of strips that are in the reference. Then I could cut all those pieces on the fold of the fabric. On this step, the notches are super important. Then I could pin the bias on one piece, sewing it very close to the edge with the yarn in it, and then I could pin the next strip, being extra careful to match the notches. And then sewing again on the same line of stitching that you did before. See, now you have the piping between the two pieces. You just need to redo that a million times. Okay, maybe like 8. Now I have done all the lines on the collar, so I add the lining of the collar. I pin it all around and sew while leaving a space at the front to attach the chest pieces. Don't forget to clip the corners before turning the collar inside out. And now I'm pushing the corner from the inside using something pointy. No, you should not use scissors, but I did it anyway. It's not a good idea, because it can break through the corners. Anyways, c'est la vie, and I'm doing the same thing with the belt. Now I'm cutting the rest of the pieces, the skirt and chest, making the chest double layer, because it will have a lining. I also cut a third layer in cotton, because I want the chest area to be worn without any bra under. That way it will be a little thicker and you will be safe even if it gets a little chilly, if you know what I mean. With the white cotton pinned on the piece, I pin the darts first. They get sewn and flattened, as well as on the lining layer. Then I could use the same method from before to add piping in the center. I pin it in place, sew it very close to the edge, and then pin the lining and sew it as well. Also, on the side seam of the chest, I made a little row of stitching on the lining. As you can see here, this is a trick that can really help the lining stay in place. Now you can turn it inside out and you have a chest piece ready to be assembled. Here I pin the chest piece on the belt, starting at the center. I also pinned the lining of the belt, sandwiching the chest pieces between the two layers of the belt. I will do the same thing on the collar, pinning it in place, but the lining of the collar gets closed by hand. Now for the skirt, I simply serge the edges to keep the fabric from fraying, but you can also use the zigzag on your sewing machine. Now the side seams are just attached together, ironed flat. The skirt is pinned on the bottom part of the belt, and I could add a zipper, which is kind of the same color. If you squint, whatever. You pin one side after the other. I think an invisible zipper would be better, but I'll do with what I have here. Sorry. Then I quickly sewed the back seam, and then I could close the lining of the belt. First I pin the lining all around, as you can see here, then sew it by hand. Closing lining by hand is my favorite part. You have total control of your needle, and you can watch a movie at the same time. We are almost done on the dress. I just attached 3 little hooks on the neck. Another little change I made on the dress is to make it a bit longer, because I don't have the confidence of a young Britney. Sorry. But you can easily make it shorter on your own dress. For the hem, I just added a piping and then a strip of bias all around on the inside. I folded it, ironed it, and then sew it by hand, trying to catch only a few threads on the inside, and that way the hem is almost invisible. For the shoulder cape wings thing, I decided to make it a little smaller than the original to have it more realistic and more flattering to my own body. I cut my piece in fabric, but also in a layer of cotton batting. This material is used in quilting. It's like a tiny mattress for your body, but very soft and easy to use. The construction of this piece is quite easy. You just make a sandwich with piping edges, closing the lining by hand. I did some more quilting on the piece to have the rows like the reference. I tried to measure it and use plenty of pins like this. Now to follow those lines, trying to avoid some shifting on the fabric so the design stays clean and symmetrical. And yes, I pricked myself many times. After researching the attachment, I realized that it is a clear strip that you can sometimes see in the video. So I made 2 little loops at the point, and I could use a transparent brass strap that I had from, I don't know, forever. That way it's adjustable. And now to make a hat. I love tiny hats. I just drafted something using paper and cardboard until I was happy with the shape. Now that I have made the pattern, I will need to use some buckram to make the hat. But I don't have buckram. So my plan is to use this piece of linen. Nope, not linen at all. Look at this blob of plastic. Too bad, I will still use it. The plan is to use wood glue and paint all over this to make it stiff enough to make a hat with it. Let's hope it works. I watered down some wood glue and painted it all over the fabric. I'm kind of surprised it worked. A lot better than expected. That is unconventional materials, but it works. So, recommend. You can see now that the fabric is a lot stiffer and can be used to make the hat. I cut my 2 pieces. So with the top and the crown attached, I added a row of stitching to finish the crown in the center. I added some wire so it would keep the shape even better. Just 1 circle on the inside and sewing it by hand. And another wire all around the edge that I sewed by machine this time, just a tiny zigzag. The ends of the wire are looped, so you don't have anything poking you. It stays in place. Now we just need to cover this structure with a piece of batting on the top part. Then I added a piece of fabric to cover the top, and I attached it by hand because this edge won't be visible, so it doesn't have to be very clean. It's fine. To make the crown, I cut the pieces in blue twice with a bit of piping between them, like so. Same technique as before. And then I could pin that on my hat, hiding the edge of the other blue part and pinning it so it looks nice. A bit of hand sewing along the piping. I try to have it kind of invisible. Then folding the bottom edge and sewing it again by hand. and I don't know if you noticed in the music video, but we can see a pic of her underwear, which I think is really fun, but I don't have the confidence to do that. So I've decided to add a little pink lining on my hat to reference that. This is a leftover fabric from a previous project. So the lining is roughly pinned in place. I don't mind all the pleats inside, and then you simply have to attach it by hand. A final little touch on this project, some little bling from my treasure drawer. I asked on my Instagram to help me choose, and they gave me the nice idea to combine some pieces of metal together. I cut off this piece of, I don't know, I think it was a compass cover or something, making it nice and smooth, and I attached this tiny pin, which was my grandfather's pilot pin. Sorry, Grandpa, but we stay on theme here. And on the inside of the hat, I attached those wig clips. This is super useful for hats. And the final touch, a little feather on the chest. That's it! The costume is finished, and I hope you will enjoy the reveal, because I spent way too much time on it. Enjoy! Cabin crew, please arm your doors, cross-check and report.
But can't you say I'm calling?
No, I'm calling.
A guy like you should wear a warning.
What?
It's dangerous.
Yes, it's dangerous. You should be doing your security checks.
I'm falling.
Hello? Are you dancing again? C'est n'importe quoi cette compagnie. Hey, just close those compartments. Sir, get back to your seat, please. Only one person in the bathroom at a time, please. Could you not do that? I need to get another job. Bébé. Je vais revenir au maquillage.